The second and final movement of Beethoven's epic Last Sonata, Opus 111, is the complete opposite of the first movement, with its very intense writing. The second movement is an Arietta in C major, so an instrumental song with variations. So we have a theme that's in two parts. The first part is in C major, and the second part starts in A minor and then moves back to C major at the end. Then there are 5 variations on the Arietta straight on, all staying firmly solipsistically within C major. Then there's an episode modulating away harmonically, and then coming back with 2 more variations in C major again, where the theme returns as in the beginning but with more extra layers. The theme and the first 3 variations all have repeats on both parts, and in a slow tempo it lasts usually around 15 minutes, or if you take a really slow tempo, in some extreme cases it can last over 20 minutes, for example when Barenboim plays it. However, I think the tempo marking is supposed to be Adagio and molto, semplice and cantabile, and not Adagio molto and semplice and cantabile. So it shouldn't be too heavy and slow. Adagio molto. There's one thread running through all the variations, and it's a profound task that Beethoven sets for himself to have all the variations in one fundamental tempo, the same in all variations but with increasingly faster note values. So it's in triple meter. We have 3 beats per bar and mostly long note values in the theme. In variation 1, Beethoven breaks down each beat in 3 16th notes, or as one unit in a slow swing feel. Then in variation 2, he's doubling that to 2 units of a swing feel, and in variation 3, doubling it again to 4 fast swing feel units. And then going back to 3 straight 16th notes in variation 4 and 5, but also dividing each 16th notes into 3 30-second triplet notes. Then after the modulating episode in variation 6, we get the pure theme again, together with divisions in 3 and 9. And in the final variation 7, which is only the first part in C major, Beethoven adds the smallest note value that is possible to play, the trill, where the actual note values are blurred into one sound of vibrating notes. This is a personal favorite of mine. I believe it's one of the greatest works ever written for piano, and certainly one of the best piano sonatas as a genre. And it's mostly because of this second movement. And on a personal note, I played this sonata on my bachelor graduation concert from the Academy of Gothenburg in 2010. Now, it might seem a bit slow and boring or pretentiously rambling at first, but if you take the time to go into the music, it gives so much back, so much beauty and hope and forgiveness and some ecstasy, and grace is really the right word for it. Just musically, there are some moments where a new world is opened up, and it's largely because we stay so long inside of the variations. And then there are some moments where you feel a connection to a pure beauty that you never want it to end, and then it doesn't end. It just keeps on going and giving for a long time until it reaches the end finally, and then it just ends with some short melodic fragments tying together the theme after the trill variations. And then it's impossible to play anything after it, like in a recital program. And it's hard to just go back to the real world to have an applause after it. You need to wait a long time after it's finished. Okay, now I will go through the musical material of the different variations, and then I will play through the movement from beginning to end as the last part of this episode. So we start with the Arietta theme. Semplice is simple and cantabile is singable, and we have these nice long note values, and like every chord is consonant, like no dissonances, just plain chords, very resonating. Crescendo, melody reaches a high and back. and then repeat back to C major. So it's basically just going from C major using the dominant G major, and then this is D minor, the relative to the subdominant, and back to G major. Yeah, and then the second part we go to A minor. This E in the left hand is like a timpani playing it. And now going to G major. So this is like a structural important moment, because in all the variations we get this moment in the middle of the second part when we move from A minor to G major, and it's going from A minor back to C major. And in the theme we get it as a very long note. It just stops at the G. And you can feel the, like it's gonna be a sublime piece. You can feel it on this G chord. And a long chord. And more G, just closing. And back to C major. Okay, that's basically the Arietta theme. For the first variation now, we start to move up the energy level, and we get 16th notes in this slow swing feel, and it's basically a lullaby when you have this rocking, coming back to this G in the left hand, and with a melody. I want to stop playing, it's so lovely. We can also look at the score, and since it's in C major, in the Arietta it's like no sharps or flats at all. There are some in the A minor section, but there are no accidentals. And now in the first variation we see some accidentals are coming just temporarily, and it's not modulating. We're always staying in C major, but these accidentals are like small notes, chromatic notes, starting to fill out the space of C major a bit outside. And there's like some passing notes and neighbor notes. Into A minor. And now the second part is basically continuing this lullaby lilt. This is the G major moment, and we're going now. There's a crescendo. It's more poignant here, the way that it's a crescendo and a subito piano on the G. And the chromatic notes. More crescendo. And now we're at the, I'm skipping the repeats for this analysis. Now we're at the second variation. And now we have this complex rhythmic move from 9/16 to 6/16. Well, it says 6/16. It's actually kind of wrong mathematically. The idea is that we move from 3 beats per bar and 3 16th notes per beat to 3 beats per bar, but only 2 16th notes on each beat. And basically we have this unit of a swing feel that we have. In the lullaby we have, Now in the second variation we get 2 swing field units on each beat. But it's actually wrong mathematically, because Beethoven is thinking of this unit of 1/16th note and the 32nd note as one unit of 1/16th notes. So like a triplet of 32nd notes would be 1/16th notes. So if you count it that way as triplets, that's kind of implied, then you get to 6/16th notes. But basically the character here, Beethoven is basically inventing new styles in these variations, and here he invents the shuffle. Some walking bass here. Accidentals now, and it's like the more notes we add, the more energy we get, even harmonically in some sense. Second part in minor. It's just standing still here with these grace notes, it's so cool. Of total syncopation. And back on the beats. And now for the third variation, Beethoven invents a new style. He invents the boogie woogie 150 years before his time. Offbeat accents here. That was the repeat. So the tempo relations, we're doing this doubling one more time. So going from 2 of the swing field units in one beat to 4. So the fundamental tempo is still the same, but it feels like a completely different tempo because it's more beats within the big beats. I will not play all of this now, let's move on instead. After the second part in A minor, we go down in energy again. So here Beethoven is going back to the first tempo again of 3 16th notes per beat. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So it's also a very complex move, going from when we have divided it in 4 swing field units. Now we're back to 3 16th notes, and then each 16th notes is still divided into 3 32nd notes as triplets again, but they are just oscillating in the deep register like a murmur. But it's not a tremolo, it's not just the sound, it's actually the notes. And then the melody is just like a shadow coming off beats. So we're down in pianissimo and the note values are quick, but the energy is lower. So and of course you have used the pedal to create this amazing sound. And it's important to keep the pianissimo all the way, because we need this breath from the previous variation. notes. Left hand is moving. And now we have a break in continuity with the structure here. So the three first variations and the Arietta theme, they have repeats on both parts. So we have the part in C major, repeat, part in A minor, and repeat. And now there's no more repeats, but here we get, it's like a repeat in the harmonic sense of we get another section in C major, but it's a completely new variation. We're going to move up in the register. So I call these variations 4 and 5, but in a structural sense, we get it like 4A and 5A, and then followed by 4B and 5B, rather than 4A and B and 5A and B. So here we leave Earth and we go up to heaven, literally with the scale. This is so beautiful, I don't want to stop playing it. Here you can see more clearly that it's 3 16th notes in the left hand, and it's 3 32nd notes, triplets to every 16th notes. And here Beethoven invents again a new style, minimalism. Minimalism is something that's evolving in the 20th century with people like Philip Glass and Reich and Riley. So the idea is that you have musical momentum of some sort, and then you do minimal changes in that, and that creates this musical atmosphere that is changing a little bit. And this is what Beethoven is doing. He just uses these notes within the scale, like C major here, for example, and he just takes them in slightly different order all the time. And it's so amazing how it's just, you see these minimal changes on the surface. Now back to the next variation, the part in A minor, and we're back to Earth with the murmuring and the shadow. Now, best moment. These are like one of the best moments where you go, because we're in this state of A minor and tension and minor, then it just opens up when we get to the G major. So now back to A minor, now we get the second part, and this is even more minimalistic, just the A minor scale notes with the G flat, the leading note, and in different order. So in the second part, when we move to G major, we get more chromatic notes again. MIDI and B flat major, but still pushing higher. Until we get to C major, and this is the moment where heaven opens up. And And it never stops, it just continues. Until. Now we get a little bit more grounded here. The left hand is doing some moves that are a bit jumpy. It's not very easy. But this is basically like a small coda, a codetta to the theme. We're also breaking from the structure. This is a little bit new, and we're consolidating now the registers of the high and the low in this way, because we get the melodic fragments in the right hand melody also. Bass, and now arpeggios up to heaven. Now, this is a trill on the dominant that could very well be the end of the piece, or like the closing of the piece. But Beethoven isn't doing that, he is moving on instead. So he uses this trill to modulate. Still on the dominant, but now modulating and moving to here. So now we're in B flat major as a dominant to E flat major, and E flat major is a mediant, so it's a mediant move to going from G major to lovely move. And now a triple trill. And a crescendo. And now continuing the top line. Chromatic and rising to here. And this is so typical Beethoven, this dynamic range of going quickly from piano to forte, back to piano, and up and down. So now we're here's sforzato and diminuendo, piano and crescendo to reach the actual, like we're broadening the register here, going. This is like very close to the end of the piano, I think, in Beethoven's time when he wrote this. I don't think they had many notes below here. They might have had some other notes, I don't know exactly, but it's still like on the edges here. And back down in dynamic. And this is E flat major that we modulated to. Now this is the episode of modulation that's breaking off from the variations, and we get this texture of repeated chords. That's kind of a heavy texture. It's not so heavy and sad in minor here because it's in major, and now we're starting to modulate, and let's see where we modulate to. This is C minor territory. But now A flat major. But G major, F major, back to E flat major. This is starting to modulate around and around, and it's not really no use to say where we are, because the point is that it's going around. This is harmonic limbo, because it just keeps on going, and so we're losing our bearings harmonically, and that's the point of it. And also in the middle, we have these voices that moves in thirds and seconds like this. And in the first movement, in the beginning, the slow introduction, we have this place with the same feature. So it's a cool like echo of that in this register. But now when we get to end of this, we get these triplets again, preparing for the next part, which is back to the variations. This is such a great movement. It's like in the movie Inception, when they are in limbo of the dream worlds, and you've been stuck in limbo for like decades, this character, and then Leonardo DiCaprio shows himself for some other timeline, and this guy who has been stuck for decades is like, he's just recognizing this old friend that he used to be with like decades ago. And this is the moment here where we get the return of the theme in C major, and this very just resonating like only the C major scale notes, but it's not returning in a triumphant manner. It's this, you just recognize it's there. I think at least that's how you're supposed to play, because it says crescendo and you don't reach a forte until a bit later. So here we go from leaving the limbo. I get goosebumps every time I play this in concerts. It's so great music, and it only works when we have done all these things before. It is really great. And with the rhythmic stuff here, the texture, now we have the theme in long note values on top. And then we have all three levels. We have 16th notes, 3 notes on each beat in the right hand. I'll play with both hands to show now. And then in the left hand we have each of the 16th notes is 3 32nd notes, and still every note is important. So everything together. Okay, I want to play it all again. Then we get the A minor section again. I won't play all of this for now. And then after this version we get a little episode of something new again when we go from here. Like these forzatos, and it's kind of, we need something more of a bridge between this variation and the last variation to keep it interesting, and like we don't want it to end, so Beethoven gives us a little bit more in between. It's just we can be grateful for that. Flip the texture with the hands. And now we reach the G major from this episode, but now it feels like we're a G major as a cadential a moment where it's really starting to move to the end. We can feel it because we're staying in G major so long now. D major, which is an extension of G major kind of. ninth. And the trill on the dominant again, and the diminuendo to pianissimo. I'm playing it longer now. So now for the final variation, we follow this through to the end of breaking down the note values. We got the theme here. We're in the high register, the heaven register. The 16th notes and the 32nd notes are in the left hand, but when it's moving on 16th notes. You can feel them implied in the movements of this. And for the kicker, we have this trill, which is just vibrating. So we need to play the trill with, like in this part of the hand, and the melody in this part of the hand. It's kind of hard, some fingerworks magic, but it's possible with hours and years of practice. So here we're switching, so playing the trill on this part of the hand and melody on this. And we get some more fragments, and then in the very end we're actually coming down from heaven. We get back this texture of the straight 32nd notes. And we're coming down. And these fragments of the theme in like accents and a small outburst of forte. And you basically do ritardando here. You need to end in a worthy manner, because it's the Beethoven's Last Sonata. You have to take some time here. To pianissimo. But still it's no fermata, it's just ending, and everything that's been going on for the whole movement just comes to an end, and then it's over. Now, before I play through the movement, I will read a little bit from Charles Rosen in his book Beethoven's Piano Sonatas, A Short Companion. There's a similarity with this theme, the Arietta theme, to a waltz that Diabelli sent out to a lot of composers in Europe in 1819, and this is the theme that Beethoven wrote a big work, 33 variations on the Diabelli theme, which is a waltz. He actually wrote that after this sonata, so that's his final piano work. This is still the last piano sonata. And apparently Beethoven didn't like this theme at all first. He thought it was trash. And then Charles Rosen writes this. The kinship of Beethoven's sublime with trash or junk reveals an essential aspect of his art. Eventually, Beethoven was won over by Diabelli's unprepossessing waltz. He saw that it had possibilities and wrote not one but 33 variations. Nevertheless, his initial reaction was right. The waltz is indeed trash. It displays in the crudest fashion the simplest elements of tonality, tonic, dominant, relative minor, and subdominant, and does nothing with them but present them in the right order with disconcertingly commonplace motives. It would be only a slight exaggeration to say that this is what Beethoven himself does on so many occasions. What the exaggeration hides is crucial. Beethoven knew how to strip naked the simplest elements of tonality in order to release their full power, to use the commonplace to reveal what made it so irresistible. Diabelli is complacent. He does no more than use the commonplace. He does not, like Beethoven, insist upon it obsessively until it releases its full potential. Beethoven's crudeness was provocative, never fortuitous or thoughtless, and it could be juxtaposed to, and even combined with, a sophistication of extreme refinement and delicacy. His art was never innocent, but it often deliberately skirts the edge of the artless. The molto semplice of the Arietta is a direction to the performer, not a description of the piece, but simplicity is necessary to bring out what is already there.